continuing into the Wild Warriors. I'll be reading chapter 2 through 4. So I will be reading 4. Some people take that as I don't. But I will be reading all of 2, all of 3, all of 4, maybe 5, just to make it even. But yeah, that's all I'll really be reading. Mainly because it's literally midnight. So, yeah. Hopefully you find joy in this series. I'm going to put them into a playlist for you. I'm only on like page 20 out of 200 some. So, yeah. This is gonna take months, mainly because I am a minor and I go between houses. So, it's gonna be quite hard to keep track of all this, but mostly it'll be every other week, every 3 days that I post. So, yeah, you're gonna have to deal with that. But I will be trying to read quite a bit of this tonight, so that it's spaced out and I have a lot done, so that on the weekend that I'm with my mom, I can give you all a lot of this. I might be posting in the morning. If you see this at midnight, I might be posting maybe 4 a.m. So, be ready for that. Let's get into chapter 2. Chapter 2. Well, hissed Bluestar, her face only a mouse length from his now. Lionheart remained silent as he towered over Rusty. He flattened his ears and crouched under the Golden Warrior's cold stare. His fur prickled uncomfortably. I am no threat to your clan, he mewed, looking down at his trembling paws. You threaten our clan when you take our food, yelled Bluestar. You have plenty of food in your two-legged nest already. You come here only to hunt for sport, but we hunt to survive. The truth of the warrior queen's words pierced Rusty like a black thorn, and suddenly he understood her anger. He stopped trembling, sat up, and straightened his ears. He raised his eyes to meet hers. I had not thought of it that way before. I am sorry, he mewed solemnly. I will not hunt here again. Bluestar let her knuckles fall and signaled to Lionheart to step back. You are an unusual kitty pet, Rusty, she mewed. A great paw's sigh of relief made Rusty's ears twitch. He heard the approval in Bluestar's voice and noticed as she swapped a meaningful glance with Lionheart. The look made him curious. What flashed between the two warriors? Quietly he asked, Is survival here really so hard? Our territory covers only parts of the forest, she answered Bluestar. We compete with other clans for what we have, and this year late new leaf means prey is scarce. Is your clan very big? Rusty mewed, his eyes wide. Big enough, replied Bluestar. Our territory can support us, but there is no prey left over. Are you all warriors, then? Rusty mewed. Bluestar's guarded answers are just making him more and more curious. Lionheart answered him. Some are warriors, some are too young, or too old, or too busy caring for kits to hunt. And you all live and share prey together? Rusty murmured it all, thinking a little guiltily of his own easy, selfish life. Bluestar looked again at Lionheart. The golden tabby stared back at her steadily. At last she returned her gaze to Rusty and mewed. Perhaps you should find out these things for yourself. Would you like to join ThunderClan? Rusty was so surprised he couldn't speak. Bluestar went on. If you did, you would train with Greypaw to become a clan warrior. But kitty pets can't be warriors, Greypaw blurted out. They don't have warrior blood. A sad look clouded Bluestar's eyes. Warrior blood, she echoed with a sigh. Too much of that has been spilled lately. Bluestar fell silent, and Lionheart mewed. Bluestar is only offering you training, young kid. There is no guarantee you will become a full warrior. It might prove too difficult for you. After all, you are used to a comfortable life. Rusty was stung by Lionheart's words. He swung his head around to face the golden tabby. Why offer me the chance, then? But it was Bluestar who answered. You are right to question our motives, young one. The fact is, ThunderClan needs more warriors. Understand that Bluestar does not make this offer lightly, warned Lionheart. If you wish to train with us, we will have to take you into our clan. You must either live with us and respect our ways, or return to your two-leg place and never come back. You cannot live with a paw in each world. A cool breeze stirred the undergrowth, ruffling Rusty's fur. He shivered, not at the cold, but the excitement at the incredible possibilities opening up in front of him. Are you wondering if it's worth giving up your comfortable kitty pet life? Asked Bluestar gently. But do you realize the price you will pay for your warmth and food? Rusty looked at her, puzzled. Surely his encounter with these cats had proved to him just how easy and luxurious his life was. I can tell you're still a Tom, Bluestar added, despite the two-leg stench that clings to your fur. What do you mean, still a Tom? You haven't yet been taken to the two-leg to see the cutter, meowed Bluestar gravely. You would have been very different then, not quite so keen to fight a clan cat as expect. Rusty is confused. He suddenly thought of Henry, who had become fat and lazy since his visit to the vet. Was that what Bluestar meant by the cutter? The clan may not be able to offer you such easy food or warmth, continued Bluestar. In the season of leaf-bared nights in the forest can be cruel. The clan will be demanded great loyalty and hard work. You will be expected to protect the clan with your life if necessary, and there are many mouths to feed, but the rewards are great. You will remain a Tom, you will be trained in the ways of the wild, you will learn what it is to be a real cat. The strength and the fellowship of the clan will always be with you, and even when you hunt alone. Rusty's head reeled. Bluestar seemed to be offering him the life he had lived so many times, and so tantalizing in his dreams, but could he live that for real? Lionheart interrupted his thoughts. Come on, Bluestar, let's not waste any more time here. We must be ready to join the other patrol at Moonhigh. Tiger Claw will wonder what has become of us. He stood up and flicked his tail expectantly. Wait, Rusty mewed. Can I think about your offer? Bluestar looked at him for a long moment and nodded. Lionheart will be here tomorrow at Sunhigh, she told him. Give him your answer then. Bluestar murmured a low signal, and in a single movement the three cats turned and disappeared into the undergrowth. Rusty blinked. He stared, excited, uncertain, up past the ferns that encircled him, through the canopy of leaves to the stars that glittered in the clear sky. The scent of clan cats still hung heavy in the evening air, and as Rusty turned and headed for home, he felt a strange sensation inside him, tugging him back into the depths of the forest. His fur prickled deliciously, and the light wind and the rustling leaves seemed to whisper his name into the shadows. Chapter 3. That morning, as Rusty slept off his night's wanderings, the mouse dream came again, even more vivid than before. Free of his collar, beneath the moon, he stalked the timid creature, but this time he was aware of being watched. Shining from the shadows of the forest, he saw dozens of yellow eyes. The clan cats had entered his dream world. Rusty woke, blinking in the bright sunshine that was streaming across the kitchen floor. His fur felt heavy and thick with warmth. His food bowl had been topped off, and his water bowl rinsed out and filled with bitter-tasting two-leg water. Rusty preferred drinking from puddles outside, but when it was hot, he was very thirsty. He had to admit it was easier to lap up the water indoors. Could he really abandon this comfortable life? He ate, and then pushed his way out of the cat flap into the garden. The day promised to be warm, and the garden was heavy with the smell of early blossoms. Hello, Rusty, meowed a voice from the fence. It was Smudge. You should have been awake an hour ago. The baby sparrows were out stretching their wings. Did you catch any? Rusty asked. Smudge yawned and licked his nose. Couldn't be bothered. I'd already eaten enough at home. Anyway, why weren't you out earlier? Yesterday you were complaining about Henry sleeping his time away, and today you're not much better yourself. Rusty sat down on the cool earth beside the fence and curled his hair neatly over his front paws. I was in the woods last night, he reminded his friend, and once he felt the blood stir in his veins and his fur stiffen. Smudge looked at him, his eyes wide. Oh, yes, I forgot. How was it? Did you catch anything? Or did anything catch you? Rusty paused, not sure how to tell his old friend what had happened. I met some wildcats, he began. What? Smudge had clearly been shocked. Did you get into any fight? Sort of. Rusty could feel the energy surging through his body again as he recalled the strength and power of the clan cats. Were you hurt? What happened? Smudge prompted him eagerly. There were 3 of them, bigger and stronger than any of us. And you fought all 3 of them? Smudge interrupted, his tail twitching with excitement. No, Rusty mewed hastily. Just the youngest one. The other two came later. How come they didn't shred you to pieces? They just warned me to leave their territory, but then... Rusty hesitated. What? Mewed Smudge impatiently. They asked me to join their clan. Smudge's whiskers quivered disbelievingly. They did! Rusty insisted. Why would they do that? I don't know, Rusty admitted. I think they need extra paws in their clan. Sounds a bit odd to me. Smudge mewed doubtfully. I wouldn't trust them if I were you. Rusty looked at Smudge. His black and white friend had never shown any interest in venturing into the woods. He was perfectly content living with his housefolk. He would never understand the restless longing that Rusty's dreams stirred in him night after night. But I do trust them, Rusty purred softly, and I've made up my mind I'm going to join them. Smudge scrambled down from the fence and stood in front of Rusty. Please don't go, Rusty, he mewed in alarm. I might never see you again. Rusty nudged him affectionately with his head. Don't worry, my housefolk will get another cat. You'll get on with him fine. You get along with everyone. But it won't be the same, Smudge wailed. Rusty twitched his tail impatiently. That's just the point. If I stay around here till they take me to the cutter, I won't be the same either. Smudge looked puzzled. The cutter? He echoed. The vet, Rusty explained. To be altered like Henry was? Smudge shrugged and stared down his paws. But Henry's all right, he mumbled. I mean, I know he's a bit lazier now, but he's not unhappy. We could still have fun. Rusty felt his heart filled with sadness at the thought of leaving his friend. I'm sorry, Smudge. I'll miss you, but I have to go. Smudge didn't reply, but stepped forward and gently touched Rusty's nose with his own. Fair enough. I can see I can't stop you, but at least let's spend one more morning together. Rusty found himself enjoying the morning even more than usual, visiting his old haunts with Smudge, sharing words of the cats he had grown up with. Every one of his senses felt supercharged, as if he were posed for a huge jump as sunlight approached. Rusty grew more and more impatient to see if Lionheart would really be waiting for him. The ideal buzz of mews from his old friend seemed to fade into the background as all his senses strained toward the forest. Rusty jumped down from his garden fence for the last time and crept into the woods. He had said his goodbyes to Smudge. Now all his thoughts were focused on the forest and the cats who lived in it. As he approached the spot where he had met with the clan cats the night before, he sat down and tasted the air. Tall trees shielded the ground from the midday sunshine, making it comfortably cool. Here and there a patch of sunlight shone through a gap in the leaves and lit up the forest floor. Rusty could smell the same cat scent as last night, but he had no idea whether it was old or new. He lifted his head and sniffed uncertainly. You have a lot to learn, mewed a deep voice. Even the tiniest clan cat knows where another cat is nearby. Rusty saw a pair of green eyes glistening from beneath the bramble bush. Now he recognized the scent. It was Lionheart. Can you tell if I'm alone? Asked the golden tabby, stepping into the light. Hastily, Rusty sniffed again. The scents of Blue Star and Grey Paw were still there, but not as strong as the previous night. Hastily he mewed. Blue Star and Grey Paw aren't with you this time. That's right, yelled Lionheart. But someone else is. Rusty stiffened as the second cat strode into the clearing. This is White Storm, purred Lionheart, one of ThunderClan's senior warriors. Rusty looked at the Tom and felt his spine tingle with cold fear. Was this a trap? Long-bodied and muscular, White Storm stood in front of Rusty and gazed down at him. His white coat was thick and unmarked, and his eyes were the yellow of sun-baked sand. Rusty flattened his ears warily and tensed his muscles in preparation for a fight. Relax before your fierce scent brings unwanted attention, growled Lionheart. We are here only to take you to our camp. Rusty sat very still, hardly daring to breathe, as White Storm stretched his nose forward and gave him a curious sniff. Hello, young one, murmured the white cat. I've heard a lot about you. Rusty dipped his head in greeting. Come on, we can speak more once we are in camp, ordered Lionheart, and, without pausing, he and White Storm leaped away in the undergrowth. Rusty jumped to his paws and followed as quickly as he could. The two warriors made no allowance for Rusty as they sped through the forest, and before long he was struggling to keep up. Their pace barely slowed as they led him over fallen trees that had cleared in a single leap, but which Rusty had to scramble over paw by paw. They passed through the sharply fragrant pine trees where they had to jump across deep gullies churned by a two-legged tree-eater. From the safety of his guarded fence, Rusty had often heard it roaring and snarling in the distance. One gully was too wide to jump, half filled with slimy, foul-smelling water. The clan cats waded through without hesitation. Rusty had never put a paw in water before, but he was determined not to show any signs of weakness, so he narrowed his eyes and followed, trying to ignore the uncomfortable wetness that soaked his belly fur. And at last Lionheart and Whitestorm paused. Rusty skidded to a halt behind them and started panting while the two warriors stepped onto a rock that rested on the edge of a small ravine. "We are very close to our camp now," meowed Lionheart. Rusty strained to see any signs of life, moving leaves, and a glimpse of fur among the bushes below, but his eyes saw nothing except the same undergrowth that covered the rest of the forest floor. "Use your nose, you might be able to scent it," hissed Whitestorm impatiently. Rusty closed his eyes and sniffed. Whitestorm was right. The scents here were very different from the cat scents he was used to. The air smelled stronger, speaking of many, many different cats. He nodded thoughtfully and announced, "I can smell cats." Lionheart and Whitestorm exchanged amused looks. They will come at a time, if you are accepted into the clan, when you will know each cat's scent by name. Lionheart meowed. "Follow me." He led the way nimbly down the boulders to the bottom of the ravine and pushed his way through a thick patch of gorse. Rusty followed, and Whitestorm took up the rear as his side scraped against the prickly gorse. Rusty looked down and noticed that the grass beneath his paws was flattened into a broad, strong-smelling track. This must be the main entrance into the camp, he thought. Beyond the gorse, a clearing opened. The ground at the center was bare, hard earth shaped by many generations of paw steps. This camp has been here a long time. The clearing was dappled by sunshine, and the air felt warm and still. Rusty looked around, his eyes wide. There were cats everywhere, sitting alone or in groups, sharing food or purring quietly as they groomed one another. "Just after sun high, when the day is hottest, at times for sharing tongues," Lionheart explained. "Sharing tongues?" Rusty echoed. "Clan cats always spend time grooming each other and sharing the news of the day," Whitestorm told him. "We call it sharing tongues. It's a custom that binds the members of the clan together." The cats had obviously smelled Rusty's scent, for heads began to turn and stare curiously in his direction. Suddenly, shy of meeting any cat's gaze directly, Rusty looked around the clearing. It was edged with thick grass, dotted with tree stumps and a fallen tree. A thick curtain of ferns and gorse shielded the camp from the rest of the woods. "Over there," meowed Lionheart, flicking his tail toward an impenetrable tangle of brambles, "is the nursery where the kids are cared for." Rusty swiveled his ears toward the bushes. He couldn't see through the knot of prickly branches, but he could hear the mewling of several kittens from somewhere inside. As he watched, a ginger she-cat squirmed out through a small gap in front. "That must be one of the queens," Rusty thought. A tabby queen with distinctive black markings appeared around the bramble bush. The two she-cats exchanged a friendly look between the ears before the tabby slipped inside the nursery, murmuring to squealing kids. "The care of our kids is shared by all the queens," meowed Lionheart. "All cats serve the clan. Loyalty to the clan is the first law in our warrior code. A lesson you must learn quickly if you wish to stay with us." "Here comes Bluestar," meowed Whitestorm, sniffling the air. Rusty sniffled the air too, pleased that he was able to recognize the scent of the gray she-cat a moment before she appeared from the shadow of a large boulder that lay beside them at the head of the clearing. "He came," Bluestar purred, addressing the warriors. Whitestorm replied, "Lionheart was convinced he would not." Rusty noticed the tip of Bluestar's tail twitch impatiently. "Well, what do you think of him?" she asked. "He kept up well on the return journey despite his puny size," Whitestorm admitted. "He certainly seems strong for a kitty pet." "So it's agreed." Bluestar looked at Lionheart and Whitestorm. Both cats nodded. "Then I shall announce his arrival to the clan." Bluestar leaped up onto the boulder and yelled, "Let all those cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath the high rock for a clan meeting." Her clear call brought all the cats trotting towards her, emerging like liquid shadows from the edges of the clearing. Rusty stayed where he was, flanked by Lionheart and Whitestorm. The other cats settled themselves below the high rock and looked expectantly up at their leader. Rusty felt a rush of relief as he recognized Grey Paw's thick gray fur among the cats. Beside him sat a young tortoise-shell queen, her black dappled tail tucked neatly over the small white paws. A large dark gray tabby crouched behind them, The black stripes on his fur looked like shadows on a moonlit forest floor. When the cats were still, Blue Star spoke. ThunderClan needs more warriors, she began. Never before have we had so few apprentices in training. It has been decided that ThunderClan will take an outsider to train as a warrior. Rusty heard indignant muttering erupt among the clan cats, but Blue Star silenced them with a firm yowl. I have found a cat who is willing to become an apprentice of ThunderClan. Lucky to become an apprentice, caterwauled a loud voice above the ripple of shock that spread through the cats. Rusty craned his head and saw a pale tabby cat standing up and glared defiantly on the leader. Blue Star ignored the tabby and addressed all of her clan. Lionheart and White Storm have met this young cat, and they agree with me that we should train him with other apprentices. Rusty looked up at Lionheart, then back to the clan to find all eyes were on him now. His fur prickled and he swallowed nervously. There was silence for a moment. Rusty was sure they must all be able to hear his heart pulsing and smell his spear scent. Now a deafening crescendo of caterwauling rose from the crowd. Where does he come from? Which clan does he belong to? What a strange scent he carries. That's not the scent of a clan I know. Then one yowl in particular sounded out above the rest. Look at his collar. He's a kitty pet. It was the pale tabby again. Once a kitty pet, always a kitty pet. This clan needs wild-born warriors to defend it, not another soft mouth to feed. Lionheart bent down and hissed into Rusty's ears. That tabby has long tail. He smells your fear. They all do. You must prove to him and the other cats that your fear won't hold you back. But Rusty couldn't move. How could he ever prove to these fierce cats that he wasn't just a kitty pet? The tabby continued to jeer him. Your collar is a mark of 2 legs, and the noisy jingling will make you poor hunter at best. At worst, it will bring the 2 legs into our territory, looking for the poor lost kitty pet who fills the woods with his pitiful tinkling. All the cats howled in agreement. Longtail went on, well aware that he had the support of his audience. The noise of our treacherous bell will alert our enemies, even if our 2-leg stench doesn't. Lionheart hissed into Rusty's ears once more. Do you back down from a challenge? Rusty still did not move, but this time he was trying to pinpoint Longtail's position. There he was, just behind a dusky brown queen. Rusty flattened his ears, narrowed his eyes, and hissing, leaped toward the startled cats to fling himself into a tormentor. Longtail was completely unprepared for Rusty's attack. He staggered sideways, losing his footing on the hard earth. Filled with rage and desperate to prove himself, Rusty dug his claws deep into the tabby cat's fur and sank in his teeth. No subtle rituals of swiping the boxing preceded this fight. The 2 cats were locked in a screaming, wrestling tussle that flipped and somersaulted around the clearing at the heart of the camp. The other cats had sprang out of the way to avoid screeching whirlwind of fur. As Rusty scratched and struggled, he was suddenly aware that he felt no fear, only exhilaration. Through the roaring of the blood in his ears, he could hear the cats around them wailing with excitement. Then Rusty felt his collar tighten around his neck. Longtail gripped it between his teeth and was tugging hard. Rusty felt a terrible pressure at his throat. Unable to breathe, he started to panic. He writhed and twisted, but each move only made the pressure worse. Retching and gulping for air, he summoned up all his strength and tried to pull away from Longtail's grip. And suddenly, at the loud snap, he was free. Longtail tumbled away from him. Rusty scrambled to his paws and looked around. Longtail was crouching 3 tail lengths away and dangling from Longtail's mouth. Rusty saw his collar, mangled and broken. At once, Blue Star leaped down from the high rock and silenced the noisy crowd with thunderous caterwaul. Rusty and Longtail remained fixed to the spot, gasping for breath. Clumps of fur hung from their ruffled coats. Rusty could feel a cut stinging above his eye. Longtail's left ear was badly torn, and blood dripped down his lean shoulders onto the dusty ground. They stared at each other, their hostility not yet spent. Blue Star stepped forward and took the collar from Longtail. She placed it on the ground in front of her and mewed. The newcomer has lost his 2-leg collar in battle for his honor. StarClan has spoken its approval. This cat has been released from the hold of his 2-leg owners and is free to join ThunderClan as an apprentice. Rusty looked at Blue Star and solemnly nodded his acceptance. He stood up and stepped forward into a shaft of sunshine, welcoming the warmth on his sore muscles. The pool of light blazed bright on his orange pelt, making his fur glow. Rusty lifted his head proudly and looked at the other cats that surrounded him. This time no cat argued or jeered. He had shown himself to be worthy opponent in battle. Bluestar approached Rusty and placed the shredded collar on the ground in front of him. She touched his ear gently with her nose. You look like a brand of fire in the sunlight, she murmured. Her eyes flashed briefly, as if her words had more meaning for her than Rusty knew. You have fought well. She turned to the clan and announced, From this day forward, until he has earned his warrior name, the apprentice will be called Firepaw in honor of his flame-colored coat. She stepped back, and with the other cats waited silently for the next move. Without hesitating, Rusty turned and kicked dust and grass over his collar as though burying his dirt. Longtail growled and limped out of the clearing toward a fern-shaded corner. The cats split into groups, murmuring to each other excitedly, Hey, Firepaw! Rusty heard Greypaw's friendly voice behind him. Firepaw! A thrill of pride surged through him at the sound of his new name. He turned to greet the gray apprentice with a welcoming sniff. Great Firepaw, meowed Greypaw. Especially for a kitty pet, Longtail is a warrior, although he only finished his training 2 moons ago. That scar you left on his ear won't let him forget you in a hurry. You spoiled his good looks, that's for sure. Thanks, Greypaw, Firepaw replied. He put up quite a fight, though. He licked his front paws and began to wipe clean the deep scratch that stung above his eye. As he watched, he heard his new name again, echoing among the meows of the cats. Firepaw! Hey, Firepaw! Welcome, young Firepaw! Firepaw closed his eyes for a moment and let the voices wash over him. Good name, too, Greypaw mewed approvingly, jolting him awake. Firepaw looked around. Where did Longtail creep off to? I think he was heading towards Spotted Leaf's den. Greypaw tipped his head toward the fern-enclosed corner Longtail had disappeared into. She was a medicine cat, not bad-looking either, younger and a lot prettier than most. A low yowl next to the 2 cats stopped Greypaw mid-speech. They both turned, and Firepaw recognized the powerful gray tabby who had sat behind Greypaw earlier. Darkstripe, meowed Greypaw, tipping his head respectively. The sleek Tom looked at Firepaw for a moment. Lucky your collar snapped when it did. Longtail's a young warrior, but I can't imagine him being beaten by a kitty pet. He spat the word kitty pet scornfully, then turned and stalked off. Now, Darkstripe, Greypaw hissed to Firepaw until his breath. It's neither young nor pretty. Firepaw was about to agree with his new friend when he was interrupted by a warning yowl from an old gray cat sitting at the edge of the clearing. Small ears, smells trouble. Greypaw mewed, immediately alert. Firepaw barely had time to look around before a young cat crashed through the bushes into the camp. He was skinny, and apart from the white tip of the long, his thin tail jet black from head to toe. Greypaw gasped. That's Ravenpaw! Why is he alone? Where's Tigerclaw? Firepaw looked at Ravenpaw staggering across the floor of the clearing. He was panting heavily. His coat was ruffled and dusty, and his eyes were wild with fear. Who are Ravenpaw and Tigerclaw? Firepaw whispered to Greypaw. Several other cats raced past him to greet the new arrival. Ravenpaw is an apprentice. Tigerclaw is his mentor. Greypaw explained quickly. Ravenpaw went out with Tigerclaw and Redtail at sunrise on a mission against RiverClan. The lucky furball. Redtail? Firepaw echoed, thoroughly confused by all these names. Bluestar's deputy, hissed Greypaw. But why on earth has Ravenpaw come back alone? He added to himself. He lifted his head to listen to Bluestar step forward. Ravenpaw? The she-cat spoke calmly, but a look of worry clouded her blue eyes. The other cats drew back, curling their lips with anxiety. What has happened? Bluestar jumped into the high rock and looked down at the trembling cat. Speak, Ravenpaw! Ravenpaw was still struggling for breath, and his sides heaved fitfully while the dust around him turned red with blood, but still he managed to scramble up onto the high rock and stand beside Bluestar. He turned to the crowd of eager faces that surrounded him and summoned enough breath to declare, Redtail is dead! Chapter 4. Shocked yowls rose from the clan cats and echoed through the forest. Ravenpaw staggered slightly. His right foreleg glistened wet with blood that flowed from the deep gash on his shoulder. We met from RiverClan warriors beside the stream, not far from the Sunning Rocks, he went on shakily. Oakheart was among them. Oakheart! Greypaw gasped beside Firepaw. He is a deputy of RiverClan. He's one of the greatest warriors in the forest. Lucky Ravenpaw! Wish it could have been me. I'd have really... Greypaw was silenced by a fierce glance from the old grey Tom who first sensed Ravenpaw's return. Firepaw turned his attention back to Ravenpaw. Redtail warned Oakheart to keep his hunting parties out of ThunderClan territory. He said the next RiverClan warrior to be caught in the ThunderClan territory would be killed. But Oakheart would not back down. He said his clan had to be fed whatever we threatened. Ravenpaw paused to wheeze for breath. His wound was still bleeding heavily, and he stood awkwardly to keep the weight off his shoulder. That's when RiverClan cats attacked. It was hard to see what was happening. The fighting was vicious. I saw Oakheart had Redtail pinned to the ground, but then Redtail... Suddenly Ravenpaw's eyes rolled in his head and lurched sideways, half scrambling, half falling. He slithered off the high rock and collapsed on the ground below. A ginger queen bounded toward him and crouched at his side. She licked his cheek briefly and called out, "Spotted Leaf!" Out of the fern-shaded corner trotted the pretty tortoiseshell Firepaw noticed sitting beside Greypaw earlier. She hurried over to Ravenpaw and mewed for the queen to stand back. Then she used her small pink nose to roll the apprentice over so that she could take a good look at his wound. She glanced up and mewed, "It's all right, Golden Flower. His wounds aren't fatal, but I'll need to fetch some cobwebs to stop the bleeding." As Suddenly sprinted back to her den, the hushed silence of the clearing was spoken by a mournful howl. All eyes turned to the direction it had come from. A massive dark brown tabby staggered through the coarse tunnel. Between his sharp teeth the warriors held not prey, but the lifeless body of another cat. He dragged the tattered creature into the center of the clearing. Firepaw craned his neck and glimpsed a flash of bright ginger tail hanging limply in the dust. Shock rippled through the clan like a chill breeze. Beside Firepaw, Greypaw dropped into a crouch as grief swept over him. "Redtail! How did this happen, Tigerclaw?" demanded Bluestar from a position on the high rock. Tigerclaw let the scruff of Redtail's neck fall from his mouth. He looked steadily back at Bluestar. "He died with honor, struck down by Oakheart. I couldn't save him, but I managed to take Oakheart's life while he was still gloating over his victory." Tigerclaw's voice was strong and deep. "Redtail's death was not in vain, for I doubt we'll see RiverClan hunters in our territory again." Fireheart glanced at Greypaw. The apprentice's eyes were dark with sadness. After a moment's pause, several of the cats moved forward to lick Redtail's bed-ragged fur. As they groomed, they purred hushed phrases to the dead warrior. Firepaw whispered into Greypaw's ear, "What are they doing?" Greypaw didn't take his eyes off the dead cat. He replied, "His spirit may have left to join StarClan, but the clan will share towns with Redtail one last time." "StarClan?" Firepaw echoed. "It's the tribe of heavenly warriors that watched over us all the clans. You can see them in Silverpelt." Firepaw looked confused. So Greypaw explained, "Silverpelt is that thick band of stars you see each night stretching across the sky. Each star is a StarClan warrior. Redtail will be among them tonight." Firepaw nodded, and Greypaw stepped forward to share towels with his dead deputy. Bluestar had remained silent while the first cats came to pay their respect to Redtail. Now she leaped down from the high rocks and walked slowly toward Redtail's body. The other cats retreated and watched as their leader crouched down to share towels with the old comrade one last time. When she had finished, she raised her head and spoke. Her voice was low and thick with grief, and the clan listened in silence. "Redtail was a brave warrior. His loyalty to ThunderClan will never be doubted. I always relied on his judgment, for it bore witness in the need of the clan, and was never swayed by self-interest or pride. He would have made a fine leader." Then she lowered herself onto her belly, her head bowed, her paws stretched neatly before her, and silently she grieved for her lost friend. Several other cats came and lay down beside her, their bowed heads and clenched backs echoing her mournful pose. Firepaw watched. He had not known Redtail, but he couldn't help feeling moved as he witnessed the clan mourn. Greypaw came and stood beside him again. "Dustpaw will be sad," he remarked. "Dustpaw?" "Redtail's apprentice, the brown-striped tabby over there. I wonder who his mentor will be." Firepaw glanced over at the small town moose scattered near the Redtail's body, staring unseeing at the ground. Firepaw looked past him to the clan leader. "How long will Bluestar sit with him?" he asked. "Probably the whole night," replied Greypaw. "Redtail was her deputy for many, many moons. She won't want to let him go too quickly. He was one of the best warriors, not as big and powerful as Tigerclaw and Lionheart, but quick and clever." Firepaw looked at Great Tigerclaw, admiring the strength that swelled in his powerful muscles and broad head. His massive body showed signs of a warrior life. One of his ears was split into a deep face shape, and a thick scar sliced the bridge of his nose. Suddenly, Tiger Claw stood up and stalked over to Ravenpaw. Spotted Leaf was crouched beside Tiger Claw's wounded apprentice, using her teeth and front paws to press wads of cobweb onto his shoulder wound. Ravenpaw leaned toward Greypaw and asked, "What's Spotted Leaf doing?" "Stopping the bleeding. It's like a nasty cut. And Ravenpaw seems really shaken up. He's always been a bit jumpy, but I've never seen him this bad before. Let's go and see if he's woken up yet." They made their way through the grieving cats toward the spot where Ravenpaw lay and settled themselves a respectful distance away until Tiger Claw had finished speaking. "So, Spotted Leaf?" Tiger Claw addressed the tortoiseshell with a confident mew. "How is he? Do you think he can save him? I've spent a lot of time training him up. I don't want my efforts to be wasted at the first battle." Spotted Leaf didn't look up from her patient as she mewed. "Yes, a pity if, after all your vulnerable training, he dies his first fight, eh?" Firepaw could hear a teasing purr in her soft mew. "Will he live?" Tiger Claw demanded. "Of course, he just needs to rest." Tiger Claw snorted and looked down at the motionless black shape. He jabbed Ravenpaw with one of his front paws. "Come on, then, get up!" Ravenpaw didn't move. "Look at the length of that claw!" Firepaw hissed. "Too right," replied Greypaw, feeling. "I know I wouldn't want to get into a fight with him." "Not so fast, Tiger Claw." Spotted Leaf paced her paw over Tiger Claw's sharp tail and gently moved it away. "This apprentice needs to keep as still as possible until the cut has healed. We don't want him opening his wound by jumping about trying to please you. Leave him alone." Firepaw found himself holding his breath as he waited for Tiger Claw's reaction. He guessed that few cats dared to give orders to the warrior like that. The big tabby stiffened and seemed about to speak when Spotted Leaf mewed teasingly. "Even you know better than to argue with a menacing cat, Tiger Claw." Tiger Claw's eyes flashed at the light tortoiseshell's words. "I wouldn't dare argue with you, dear Spotted Leaf," he purred. He turned to leave and caught sight of Greypaw and Firepaw. "Who's this?" he asked Greypaw, towering over them. "He is a new apprentice," Greypaw mewed. "He smells like a kitty pet," snorted the warrior. "I was a house cat," Firepaw mewed boldly, "but I am going to train to be a warrior." Tiger Claw looked at him with a sudden interest. "Ah, yes, now I remember. Bluestar mentioned that she had stumbled across some stray kitty pet, but she's actually going to try it out, is she?" Firepaw sat up very straight, anxious to impress the distinguished clan warrior. "That's right," he mewed respectfully. Tiger Claw eyed him thoughtfully. "Then I shall watch your progress with interest." Firepaw puffed his chest out proudly as Tiger Claw stalked away. "Do you think he liked me?" "I don't think Tiger Claw likes any apprentices," whispered Greypaw. Just then Ravenpaw stirred and twitched his ears. "Has he gone?" he mumbled. "Who, Tiger Claw?" replied Greypaw, trotting toward him. "Yep, he's gone." "Hi there," Firepaw began, about to introduce himself. "Go away, both of you!" Spotted Leaf protested. "How am I meant to help this cat with all three's interruptions?" She patiently flicked her tail at Greypaw and Firepaw and pushed her away between them and her patient. Firepaw realized she was serious despite the lively glimmer in her warm amber eyes. "Come on then, Firepaw," mewed Greypaw. "I'll show you around. See you later, Ravenpaw." The two cats left Spotted Leaf with Ravenpaw about to cross the clearing. Greypaw looked thoughtful. He was clearly taking his duties as a guide very seriously. "You know the high rock already," he began, flicking his tail toward the big, smooth rock. "Bluestar always addresses the clan from there. Her den He lifted his nose toward a hollow in the side of the rock. Her den was carved out many moons ago by an ancient stream. Hanging lichen dripped into the entrance, sheltering the leader's nest from the wind and rain. The warriors sleep over there," Greypaw went on. Firepaw followed him to a large bush of paces away from the high rock. There was a clear view from here right down to the coursed entrance into the camp. The branches of the bush hung low, but Firepaw could see a sheltered space inside where the warriors made their nest. "The senior warriors slept nearest to the center, where it's warmest," explained Greypaw. "They usually share their fresh kill together over by the clump of needles. The younger warriors eat nearby. Sometimes they are invited to join the senior warriors for eating, which is a really big honor." "What about the other clan cats?" Firepaw asked. fascinated by, but feeling rather overwhelmed by all the traditions and rituals of clan life. Well, the queens share warrior quarters when they work as warriors, but when they are expecting kids or nursing them, they stay in the nest near the nursery. The elders have their own place on the other side of the clearing. Come on, I'll show you. Grandpa trotted over after Grandpa, across the clearing and past the shadowy corner where Spotted Leaf had her den. They stopped beside a fallen leaf that sheltered a patch of lush grass. Crouched among the soft greenery were four elderly cats tucking into a plump young rabbit. Dustpaw and Sandpaw would have brought them that, whispered Grandpa. One of the apprentices' duties is catching fresh kill for the elders. Hello, youngster, one of the elders greeted Grandpa. Hello, small ear, meowed Grandpa, nodding respectfully. This must be our new apprentice, Firepaw, isn't it? Meowed a second Tom. His patchy fur is dark brown, and there was only a stump where his tail should have been. That's right, Firepaw replied, copying Grandpa's polite nod. I'm Half-Tail, the brown Tom purred. Welcome to the clan. Have you two eaten? Meowed Small Ear. Firepaw and Graypaw both shook their heads. Well, there's enough here. Dustpaw and Sandpaw are turning into fine hunters. Would you mind if these youngsters shared a mouse when I... The pale gray queen who lay beside him shook her head. Firepaw noticed one of her eyes was clouded and sightless. What about you, Dabletail? The elder warrior tortoiseshell cat with a gray muzzle meowed in a voice cracked with age. Of course not. Thank you, meowed Graypaw eagerly. He stepped forward and took a large mouse in the pile of prey, then dropped it at Firepaw's feet. You still haven't tasted mouse? He asked. No, Firepaw admitted. He suddenly felt excited by the warm smells that were rising from the piece of fresh kill. His whole body quivered at the thought of sharing his first real food as a clan member. In that case, you can have a first bite. Just save me some. Graypaw dipped his head and stood back to give Firepaw room. Firepaw crouched down and took a large bite from the mouse. It was juicy and tender and sang with the flavors of the forest. What do you think? Asked Graypaw. Fantastic, mumbled Firepaw, his mouth still full. Move over then, meowed Graypaw, stepping forward and bending his head to take a bite. As the two apprentices shared the mouse, they listened to the elders talk amongst themselves. How long before Blue Star appoints a new deputy? Asked Smaller. What did you say, Smaller? I think your hearing has become as poor as your eyesight, snapped Small Ear impatiently. I said, how long before Blue Stars appoint a deputy? When I ignored Small Ear's irritated reply and spoke instead to the tortoiseshell queen. Dabletail, do you remember the day many moons ago when Blue Star herself was appointed deputy? Dabletail mused. Oh yes, it was not long after she lost her kits. She'll not be happy to be appointing a new deputy, Small Ear observed. Redtail served her long and well, but she'll need to make her up her mind quickly. According to clan custom, the choice has to be made before moon high after the death of the old deputy. At least this time the choice is obvious, meowed Half-Tail. Firepaw raised his head and looked around the clearing. What could Half-Tail mean? To Firepaw, all the warriors looked worthy of becoming deputy. Perhaps he meant Tigerclaw. After all, he had avenged Redtail's death. Tigerclaw was sitting not far off, his ears angled toward the elders' conversation. As Firepaw stretched with his tongue to lick the last traces of the mouse with his whiskers, Blue Star's voice called from the high rock. Redtail's body still lay in the clearing below, pale gray in the fading light. A new deputy must be appointed, she meowed. But first, let us give thanks to StarClan for the life of Redtail. Tonight he sights with fellow warriors among the stars. Silence fell as all the cats looked up into the sky, which was beginning to darken as evening crept over the forest. And now I shall name ThunderClan's new deputy, Blue Star continued. I say these words before the body of Redtail, so that his spirit may hear and approve my choice. Firepaw looked at Tigerclaw. He couldn't help noticing the hunger in the big warrior's amber eyes as he stared up at the high rock. Lionheart, meowed Blue Star, will be the new deputy of ThunderClan. Firepaw was curious to see Tigerclaw's reaction, but the dark warrior's face revealed nothing as he moved to congratulate Lionheart with a nudge so heartily that it almost pushed the golden tabby off balance. Why didn't she make Tigerclaw deputy? Firepaw whispered to Graypaw. Probably because Lionheart has been a warrior longer, so he has a lot more experience. Greypaw hurried back, still looking up at Blue Star. Blue Star spoke again. Redtail was also a mentor to young Dustpaw. Since there must be no delay in the training of our apprentice, I shall appoint Dustpaw's new mentor immediately. Darkstripe, you are ready for your first apprentice, so you will continue Dustpaw's training. You have a fine mentor in Tiger Claw, and I expect you to pass on some of the excellency skills you were taught. The tabby warrior smiled with pride as he showed his acceptance with a solemn nod. He strode over to Dustpaw, bent his head, and rather awkwardly touched noses with his new apprentice. Dustpaw flicked his tail respectfully, but his eyes were still dull with grief from his lost mentor. Bluestar raised her voice. I shall keep vigil with Redtail's body tonight, before we bury him at sunrise. She jumped down from the high rock and walked over to lie beside Redtail's body once more. Many of the other kind cats joined her, Dustpaw and Swallier among them. Should we sit with them too? Firepaw suggested. He had to admit the idea hadn't appealed to him much. He had been a busy day and was beginning to feel tired. All he wanted to do was find somewhere warm and dry to curl up and sleep. Greypaw shook his head. No, only those who were closest to Redtail would share his final night. I'll show you where we sleep. The apprentice's stand is over here. Firepaw followed Greypaw to a thick bush of ferns that lay behind a mossy tree stump. All the apprentices are here? Firepaw asked. Not as many as usual. Just me, you, Ravenpaw, Dustpaw, and Sandpaw. As Greypaw and Firepaw settled themselves beside the tree stump, a young she-cat crawled out from beneath the ferns. Her coat was ginger, like Firepaw's, but much paler, with barely visible stripes of dark fur. So here comes the new apprentice, she meowed, narrowing her eyes. Hello, Firepaw mewed. The young cat sniffled ruefully. He smells like a kitty pet. Don't tell me I'm going to have to share my nest with that revolting stench. Firepaw felt rather taken aback. Since his fight with Longtail, all the cats had been quite friendly. Maybe they had just been distracted by Ravenpaw's news, he thought. You'll have to excuse Sandpaw, apologized Greypaw. I think she must have a fur ball stuck somewhere. She's not usually this bad-tempered. Psst, spat Sandpaw crossly. Hold on, youngsters. The deep voice of Whitestorm sounded behind the apprentices. Sandpaw, as my apprentice, I expect you to be a lot more welcoming to the newcomer. Sandpaw held up her head and looked intently. I'm sorry, Whitestorm, she purred, not sounding sorry at all. I just didn't expect to be training with a kitty pet, that's all. I'm sure you'll get used to it, Sandpaw, meowed Whitestorm calmly. Now it's getting late and training starts early tomorrow. You three should get some sleep. He gave Sandpaw a stern look, and she nodded obediently. As he walked off, she spun around and vanished into the clump of ferns. Sniffing once more, she brushed past Firepaw. With a flick of his tail, Greypaw invited Firepaw to follow him and led the way after Sandpaw. Inside the sleeping area, the ground was lined with soft moss, and the pale moonlight turned everywhere a delicate shade of green. The air was fragrant with fern scent and warmer than outside. Where do I sleep? Firepaw asked. Anywhere, just as long as it's not near me, snarled Sandpaw. She was prodding some moss with her paws. Greypaw and Firepaw exchanged glances, but still nothing. Firepaw raked together a pile of moss with his claws when he had gathered his bed into a mossy nest. He circled into it. It was comfortable and settled down. His whole body felt drowsy with contentment. This was his home now. He was a member of ThunderClan. I did decide not to read chapter 5, especially because this took me over an hour to read. I do hope you enjoyed this somewhat ASMR. It was really just a quiet reading, mainly because it's literally 1 a.m. But I do hope you enjoyed it. Thank you if you did. I will be putting this into a playlist so that you can access me reading all of this book. Yeah. Thank you, and again, goodbye.